It's Takes on Takes. You know the drill. You provide the takes, and we provide the takes on your takes today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league. The Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day. And a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who would never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Folks, check it out. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, and that'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100.
Joe, I'd like to start with my nationally televised apology to David Njoku for Browns fans not comprehending what I was intending to communicate on my social media feed last night.
I'm familiar with the circumstances.
I would like to start with this.
Okay.
Wind the clocks back to 2017. Who was the number one fan of the David Njoku fan club?
Kyle Krabs.
It's true. I was. So we have this epidemic of aggregation accounts right now on social media. They're just horrible. And everyone is worse than the one that came before it. So there was one that's putting insider quotes with things that nobody with an IQ higher than 80 would ever say, regardless of whether or not you work in the league or not, right? And they said Deshaun Watson, it was a clip of Deshaun Watson throwing to David Njoku. It said Deshaun Watson has a history of elevating his tight ends in his career. And I responded and said, no tight end who's ever played with Deshaun Watson has had 40 catches in a season. And Browns fans just took that as like, take the gloves off. I challenge you to a duel. How dare you say this about David Njoku, that he's not going to be good this year? And it was like, well, no, actually, if you look at my timeline, there's about 15 consecutive tweets of me dunking on this aggregation account for quotes that are very clearly fake, because nobody in their right mind would say Deshaun Watson has a history of elevating the play of his tight ends when nobody's caught 40 balls for him before. They said, well, David Njoku caught 15 passes in 5 games with Watson. What is that? 17 passes divided by 5 games is 3.4. I'm not a math guy. Times 17. Okay, so it'd be 57. That's also not a career high number for David Njoku for catches. And it's like, guys, I wasn't attacking David Njoku. I'm saying this account stinks. And it's making stuff up. And magically has 20,000 followers, because that's the world that we live in. Sorry, I'll get off my lawn.
Well, no, Kyle Krabs versus the state of Ohio professional football is the rivalry that we need. You've ruffled some Bengals fans' feathers. You ruffled the Browns fans.
What'd I do for Bengals fans?
Oh, it's the long-standing Jermaine Pratt conversation.
Yeah, that was years ago.
They still remind us. So,
second best linebacker on his own team.
Well, and what's fitting is that we do have a little Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt take here for Takes on Takes. Be the second one, actually.
Great. Yeah. Great. So I just wanted to put my apology out there to David Njoku that Browns fans saw the tweet and immediately took offense to the insult of David Njoku that was not an insult to David Njoku in any capacity.
All right, we good?
Yeah, I feel better.
All right, so big shout out to the participation. We asked you guys to leave a comment on yesterday's YouTube video with your take for us to address today, and we got a good amount to dive into, some good, compelling stuff to discuss. Shall we? First one, Philip Philip wants to talk a little bit about the Lions. He said the Lions win a playoff game for the first time since 1991. Now, we had Detroit winning the division, right? If I'm not mistaken, in our draft dudes predictions.
I'm going to put the banner up here with the ticker on the YouTube channel. It has our record prediction, but I can tell you that we had the Lions at 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
Winning that division so they get a home playoff game.
Now, the challenge is, do you have to host either Philly or Dallas? That's what you don't want.
Right. You have to be the 3 seed, or you have to you need to be the 3 seed.
Which is possible. You can have a better record than the South winner for sure, or some type of tiebreaker there.
Yeah, I'd say that's reasonable.
And we know Detroit, better team at home. At least that offense is a lot better at home last year.
They are. Aren't you? Are you still a little worried about the weapons?
Yeah.
To win a playoff game?
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, candidly, I hate to say this, but we love Detroit. We loved them last year. But I think the further you dive into this football team, the more you can talk yourself into some concerns. And there's some things that have to come together. They've been streaky. I think there's a reasonable chance that this could happen. I hope it does.
It's a reasonable take.
And Philip had a little follow-up. He said the word "or" has been the storyline of the NFL preseason so far.
See, that's the other thing that I did.
We're getting you going here.
So every time I see a depth chart with "or," I tweet at Adam Schefter and let him know.
Which is all the time.
And somebody was like, I don't get what Adam Schefter. It's like, the tweet's just not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If you're not a follower, you're not routinely following, or you don't know what's happening, like, it's just not for you.
Right.
In which case, think to yourself, oh, that's weird, and just keep scrolling.
All right. But
I think it's incredible. Half the league has randomly decided in the last 48 hours to start using "or" in their depth charts, because Adam Schefter had never seen that before, and half the league's got it.
You can't be Adam Schefter and say that. You can't be. Tell us that you've never looked at a depth chart prior to that one without telling us that you've never looked at a depth chart prior to that one.
I guess that's okay, but like, with
no, it's not. No, it's not. You're the biggest voice in professional football. It's not okay.
Is that your take? That's your take?
Yes, that's my take.
Couldn't the argument be that he doesn't need to? Like, I think it's bad for him to be in the game as long as he has, and to be like, oh, I've never seen them use "or" on a depth chart before. Like, that's just tell us you've never looked at a depth chart before. But I guess the argument would be it's not crucial to Adam Schefter's job, right? I am tweeting at him because I think it's hilariously tone deaf to suggest that you've never looked at one before, never seen it.
He was on the Broncos beat before he was a national NFL insider.
Was he?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
Long time ago. Before there was depth charts, perhaps. I'm sure they've been doing depth charts since the beginning of football.
And then there's this. Have you seen the whole push on social right now that, like, the people who do the depth charts in the preseason are like like they work for the website?
Well, of course they do, but I'm sure that it's authorized in some capacity.
Sure, they put their stamp of approval on it because they don't care, right?
Bijan Robinson, RB3 for the Falcons.
Third string running back, yeah.
The Bills just put the competitions where there's nobody, like there's no defined starter, in alphabetical order. It's in some spots 3 players. In
the same
block?
block?
So the CB2 would be alphabetical order, Benford, Elam, Jackson.
Would that be the equivalent of "or"?
Well, they did slashes, so obviously the Bills are
okay, but they're all in the same block.
In the same block with
all right,
slashes.
I'm gonna go tweet. Jeff. I gotta find the.
All right, we got a bunch more. We got a bunch more good ones. Next one here is from Sinrick, who says the Cincinnati Bengals signed 4 of the top 10 best value contracts this offseason and list Jermaine Pratt, Orlando Brown Jr., Trey Hendrickson, and Logan Wilson.
I'm sorry, you have to say the whole thing again.
The Bengals signed 4 of the top 10 best value contracts this offseason. Pratt, Orlando Brown Jr., Trey Hendrickson, and Logan Wilson.
I don't think you could put both linebackers in that conversation. I think they're both good value contracts, but if you're like top value contracts, I think the presence of the higher one makes the lower one all that much more impressive, but Logan Wilson signed for what? How much was it?
9.3 or something like that, AAV. And Jermaine Pratt was like 6.
6.5, I think, or something like that.
I think this is too aggressive, right? 4 of the top 10 is not true. But if you wanted to have a conversation about those being, all of them being good value deals, especially this linebacker duo of Wilson and Pratt coming back for what they're getting, like I wouldn't have been surprised if they received 12 to 15 per each, and they're getting them combined for like that. So I can celebrate that, but I don't know, 4 of the top 10 feels a little aggressive to me. All right, we got a bunch more to get to, but
I just tweeted it, Chester.
Something that you need to get to is Underdog Fantasy. Folks, August is here, and you know what that means. The official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. And folks, Underdog, it's the easiest place to play fantasy football, and it's the best place for best ball. All you do is this. You do one live snake draft. There's no waivers, no trades, and then Underdog sets your best lineup every week, and you can try it out now with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament, which is the largest fantasy football contest of all time. There's $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. And folks, there's no reason to wait. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July, so don't wait around. Get to UnderdogFantasy.com right now or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code LOCKEDON. That'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100. So that's Underdog Fantasy. Check them out, .com or the App Store. Use our promo code LOCKEDON to double your first deposit up to $100.
All right. I am locked in.
All right, here we go. Next one here comes
Have you
from
seen
Colt.
any other depth charts with or on it, though?
I'm not perusing them quite like you are, but I've noticed them because I follow that grinding tape on Twitter or X or whatever the heck it's called.
Okay, so
I've seen it.
Elena Getzenberg is who I used for the Bills.
Yeah.
I used Zach Reagan for Tennessee for the Rams. I used Nick Underhill for the Saints. I used Cam Inman for the 49ers. And I think that's it. I think that's all the ones that I tweeted at Schefter. We at some point are going to have to talk about the Browns adding another stud defensive lineman too, by the way.
Shelby Harris. Yeah, it's a good
Shelby
move.
Harris.
Good
Great
move.
signing. No,
all right, Colt has a couple of Broncos rookie hot takes. Marvin Mims finishes top 5 in rookie receiving yards, and Drew Sanders finishes over 2.5 sacks as a non-starter at off-ball linebacker.
2.5 sacks.
I that one I can get behind. Drew Sanders.
I'm very much on board with that one. That's a
very good blitzer, good rusher.
Top 5 in receiving.
I mean,
Marvin Mims.
Rookie receiving yards. I mean, you've got a lot of first rounders that got drafted.
Addison,
JSN,
Smith and Jigba,
Zay Flowers,
Quentin
Johnston.
Okay. Now, who do we have in the day 2 group?
Are we counting tight ends?
Yes.
Kincaid.
Kincaid will
have more yards than Mims.
Gibbs is going to have a big. I'm all the way out on this.
Yeah. Nope. Yep.
All the way out on that.
Dunk on us, Colt, if you get that one though.
Yeah, come on back.
Jose says Washington Commanders head coach Ron Rivera gets fired, and they end up poaching Dan Quinn from the Cowboys as their head coach, finally giving them some solid coaching for the defense and Bieniemy the offense, which will make them a playoff contender in 2024.
If they're making a coaching change, I think Eric Bieniemy's going to be the head coach. And I know that there was some not warm and fuzzies from Ron when asked about the player acclimation to Eric Bieniemy. But Bieniemy left. If Bieniemy leaves Kansas City, there had to be a carrot, right?
Was there? I mean, this was before the new owner was in there. I think if Rivera is fired, everything is new.
Man,
there's no holdovers.
How tough would that be for Bieniemy to swallow? You finally leave Andy in Kansas City, go take a shot somewhere, and you're out because the head coach flopped and you had that offensive personnel.
He aligned himself with a guy that has 12 seasons as an NFL head coach and had a losing record 9 times. I don't know what to tell you. I had to come on. I had to.
You're not wrong. I'll take the field over Dan Quinn.
Quinn would be an intriguing hire for a number of reasons.
So.
You pull him from Dallas, but yeah, I mean, look, he had some success with the Atlanta Falcons, took him to a Super Bowl. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like for sure. Tim says, I understand that Lou Anarumo is a defensive mastermind, but the inexperienced secondary will be the reason the Bengals fall short of a Super Bowl appearance.
I think this is a very legitimate concern for Cincinnati. They're changing both safety spots. You have young players stepping into some of those positions. You have Cam Taylor-Britt, who stepped in for Chidobe Awuzie, now stepping in for Eli Apple, who is no longer with the team. You'd like to think that their strategy of drafting in advance of needs will help to soften that a little bit. But I do think it is one of the big questions for Cincinnati.
I think it's a big question, but like, are we going to sit here and be able to look at the Bengals whenever their season ends and say, you know what? Damn new secondary. That was the reason they couldn't get it done. Or is it just that the AFC is really good and you need a little bit of luck and maybe it didn't happen for Cincy?
I think that's probably more likely.
Right.
But if you had to point to the personnel group that is the biggest concern for you,
definitely
be the secondary.
Periwinkle wants to get us off football for a second. They have a candy take for us, Kyle.
Okay.
I don't agree with this at all. Maybe you do. Mike and Ike's. You heard of these?
Yes.
Periwinkle thinks they're better than Skittles.
This is fact.
No.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Wait. Are you pro Mike and Ike's or are you just anti-Skittles?
I'm both. Skittles are something that you chew up and then it like you got to go in and use your
it's part of the experience.
Like a pickaxe.
Your jaw gets hurting. You mix the flavors. Your soda tastes terrible while you're eating them. It's all part of the deal. No, Mike and Ike's just are bad. They don't taste that good.
Like weirdly sour. Mike and Ike's are sweet.
Well, you have a lot of variety with the Mike and Ike's.
Right. I used to, when I was in college, I used to get a box of Mike and Ike's at the gas station, Wawa, probably on a daily basis.
They had that back then? The Wawas?
Yes.
Oh, I thought they were kind of new.
No, they're new where you are.
Yeah, it's true. Wait, what do you say? That's true. I haven't seen a Wawa outside of where you live, so.
It's Wawa on Sheets and like Central PA.
QT down
like
here.
Every corner store was either a Wawa or Sheets, and you were either diehard Wawa or diehard Sheets.
I've been to the Sheets. I've been to both. Sheets is just too much, man. I don't need all that.
All the made to order stuff. Like Wawa has made to order stuff too, but Sheets it's a little more intense.
I'm not getting a single thing made to order at a gas station. That just is not going to happen. You're not going to be catching me eating gas station hot dogs.
What's the worst thing you've ever
eaten
eaten from a gas station?
What's the worst thing I've ever eaten?
Yeah,
I don't venture into that.
Ever ate from a gas station?
I see chicken wings and biscuits and pizza for who is buying this stuff?
What is the worst thing you have yourself eaten from a gas station? You get a hot dog before?
I've done it, but it's I used to a long time ago. I used to be next door to a gas station quite frequently, and I would go there and get a hot dog sometimes. But I'm past that part of my life.
So you would say a hot dog is the worst thing that you've eaten from a gas.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about a very limited sample size. I'm getting packaged goods.
I understand that. I will say the Sheets mozzarella sticks are really good.
How do you screw up mozzarella sticks, though? You know?
Okay, so maybe you could go to a gas station and get mozzarella sticks.
I wouldn't do it. Periwinkle has this one. Kenny Pickett, 3,800 passing yards, single-digit interceptions. George Pickens, 1,200 receiving yards.
There's too much that needs to happen here. I'm out on the take just based on you 3-leg parlayed it.
Okay, what's most likely to happen there? Most likely and least likely. I think 3,800 passing yards for Pickett's the most likely.
Is the most likely.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were to a passing offense in Pittsburgh, do we think George Pickens passes Deontay Johnson?
I don't think so. I don't think he gets 1,200.
You also have Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah.
You also have the backs. I think 1,200 for George is very aggressive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So most likely 3,800, least likely the 1,200 for Pickens.
Yeah.
All right, we got a bunch more fun stuff to get to right after a quick break. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Tried to quick snap me.
Well,
on my watch.
I'm just trying to be mindful of the time. You know, they yell at us if we don't hit certain thresholds. I'm trying to be a good employee here.
That is true.
Jared playing. I'm going to Top Golf with Jared here in a few hours. Hopefully, it's thunder and lightning right now this morning. So hopefully it's
they canceled Panthers practice, right? Panthers Jets practice canceled.
Wow, didn't know that. Okay, so yeah, it's rough out here. Jared,
you live here.
I'm aware, but that doesn't mean I've been looking at the weather beyond right now, and I'm not familiar with what's going on in Spartanburg.
What are you doing differently with the lighting in your room right now?
It's thunderstorm outside. It's cloudy. There's no sun.
My daughter calls them thunderstorms, by the way.
Thumber. Oh, okay.
Thumber. Right. It's thunderstorming.
And that's what you say too, right? Like
now it is, yes.
Yeah.
I really like your backlighting right now.
Yeah, you always very complimentary whenever there's not a lot of sun in here, but the problem is that requires me to record at night. That doesn't work for me. So,
well, the thunder clouds and the blinds closed is a good combo.
Yeah, good for the lighting.
Hey, nice sweatshirt too.
Yeah, I'm glad you got the memo on the
the
performance hoodie from Legends. Yeah, appreciate that. Jared said there will be at least one division this year with all 4 teams finishing with a winning record.
I think
if you're on YouTube, you see the AFC North predictions across the screen
with all 4 teams with winning records. We also have the AFC East with all 4 teams with a winning record. Man, I forgot we picked Dallas to go 12-5.
You feeling good or bad about that?
I feel pretty good about it. Now I'm a little worried about their depth. It sounds like they dodged a bullet with Mozzie Smith. I know Tyler Biadasz got banged up. I think that's a layup. I think the AFC has 2 divisions that could do it.
I agree with you. I think it's totally possible.
Not a layup, but I think that's one of the least aggressive takes that we have fielded thus far on the show.
And Jared put bold take before. That was, he put that on there. Moonbeam Man, and this is from Moonbeam Man, not Jared Feinberg, because I think you might think this one's from Jared. Not Jared. Moonbeam Man says the Carolina Panthers will win 10 games and beat New Orleans for the division, with Houston, Burns, and Gross Matos getting 10+ sacks. Panthers will also make a trade for an offensive weapon at the deadline. Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Keenan Allen.
This is an unserious take.
Well, they brought the heat. Okay, so let's deal with it. Carolina Panthers win 10 games. We predicted them to win 7. So we're out on that. We think the Saints win the division, so we're out on that.
Correct.
Burns, Gross Matos, and Houston getting 10+ is crazy. One of them will get 10. His name is Burns. And then trading for either Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, or Keenan Allen.
I don't think they would trade for a running back based off of what they just paid.
Yeah, Miles
Sanders.
He might go 0 for 3 here.
Yetur's Gross Matos has 8 sacks in his first 3 seasons combined.
Right.
And the team felt so good about him that they went out and signed Justin Houston.
All right, so we're out on that. We're out on that.
All the way out.
Me too. If you're right, dunk on us. That's
Please
the thing. When we shatter your take, you have every right to come back.
You have every right to come back and clip it.
Right.
So timestamp it, put it in your phone reel, your photo reel, and come back if we're wrong.
Kyle Krabs would, right? I think you had the process done with either.
I would, yeah.
This next one comes from Joe, and I promise you it's not me, all right? AJ Epenesa shines the brightest on the Bills' D-line this year other than Von Miller.
No.
I mean, AJ's had a great camp, but the answer here is Greg Rousseau or Ed Oliver or Leonard Floyd.
Rousseau is the answer.
Yeah, I appreciate the AJ hype. I don't think so, though. I think you'll have a good year, though. Contract
There's
year.
Guys, there's those guys every year in training camp, right? Did you know that they're called Ranger Ricks in golf? Have you heard this phrase before?
I don't think you've connected the dots here well enough for me to understand. I've never heard of Ranger Rick.
So I did Power to the Pod for Locked On Dolphins, and somebody was like, who is the guy who flashes in camp that gets all the buzz, and then when you actually play the real games, like it doesn't happen? In golf, we call them Ranger Ricks.
So good on the range. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I walked right into it. I promise you I didn't mean to do that.
So is Epenesa Ranger Rick this year?
No, I think he'll have a decent. He had 6.5 sacks last year and played his best football. I think he'll be a reasonable depth player, like kind of what we've classified him as. There's going to be Ranger Ricks for sure, and I think they'll manifest a little bit more in preseason, right? These guys that just are blow up on preseason. Some random player will lead the league in receiving yards over preseason and then not make a roster. That type of stuff.
Who's the Bills Ranger Rick now that you guys have finished camp?
The guy that had a great camp, but it won't matter.
Yeah. Andy Isabella's on the Bills?
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen like last week?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean,
come on, you gotta give me something.
Some guys is blowing it up.
I brought this really fun talking point to the show.
I know. I wish I had something to give you. I don't know. I feel like guys have been what I've thought they would be.
They are who we thought they were.
I mean, Gabe's had a good camp, but I mean, if he goes out and has 900 yards and 7 touchdowns, I mean, that's kind of what everyone would expect.
I feel like that's too lofty of a player.
Well, normally they have somebody like Brandon Riley or Duke Williams, these types of guys.
Yes.
These are the ones. They don't have that guy this year.
Maybe that's
a little more defined. Yeah. Do you have a Ranger Rick you want to shout out?
Well, I was concerned it might be Robbie Chosen, and then he's been awesome the last couple days.
He could be the Ranger Rick.
He could be the Ranger Rick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all anybody talked about with OTAs was that Robbie Chosen's like the real deal, legitimate. And then like he's getting like 5 reps with the team in 11-on-11 in practice the first week and a half of training camp. And then they go against the Falcons and he's catching a ton of balls. So
he wasn't super high up on the depth chart. I think I remember looking. It was like Berrios and so was Craycraft ahead of him too.
Craycraft was a second string wide receiver in a 2 wide receiver depth chart, but Mike McDaniel also called preseason depth charts his nemesis. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Get him on a pod with Adam Schefter to discuss. Bub says, there will be the most coaches fired in a season since 2010. In season. There will be the most coaches fired in season since 2010, which was 4. And he says the leading candidates are Josh McDaniel, Ron Rivera, Arthur Smith, Todd Bowles, Robert Saleh, and Brandon Staley. The TLDR here is that 3 head coaches will be fired in season.
I don't think so. I think you get 2 of that group tops.
How many of them are not the coach next year? McDaniel, Rivera, Smith, Bowles, Saleh, Staley.
I think
3?
Staley will be. I think Saleh will be. I think McDaniels will be.
Ooh.
They got a cash flow problem. They can't afford.
I've heard about this cash flow problem, but they also have a consistency problem.
I understand that.
The team's going to win like 5 or 6 games.
You can't commit to the Patriot way, have the first entire year be an evaluation window, and then flush all the talent out of the system.
It was a 10-win team. He took over a 10-win playoff team.
I know.
And is effing it up.
Then you should have kept Bisaccia. If you were worried about it being a 10-win team.
You just should never have hired Josh McDaniel.
I don't disagree. I digress. I think McDaniels is back next year. Unless they win like 2 games. And I don't think they're going to win 2 games.
I think 2 of these guys will get fired.
I think Todd Bowles is out. I think Ron Rivera is out. Who am I missing?
Arthur Smith, Josh McDaniel.
I think those 2 are for sure out. And then I think like Jonathan Gannon might be one and done in Arizona.
Ooh. All right. Here's the last one from Greg. Take the Atlanta Falcons 2024 starting quarterback is currently in the NFC West. You're going to make me repeat this.
You can run.
Right. He's so corny. Falcons 2024 starting quarterback is currently in the NFC West. How Arthur Smith is either canned or throws one more Hail Mary to salvage his coaching career. And then either Matthew Stafford goes back to where he played college ball, or Arizona trades Kyler for draft capital, or San Francisco trades Trey Lance for draft capital.
Man, I hate Kyler. I hate the projection of Kyler in that offense.
You do with
Yes.
Arthur Smith.
Yeah. Middle of the field thrower. I get the athleticism component, get outside the pocket. A little bit more of a timing-based offense now.
Trey Lance, Matthew Stafford, those other options.
I think Lance is not the Hail Mary you would throw to salvage your job. So I think it would be Stafford or bust out of that. I'd really like Stafford.
Be fun.
Be very fun. But out of
what are the Rams doing at quarterback?
There, the only one that I would get excited. I don't know, man. I'm watching
Stetson Bennett
throw darts in practice.
Okay. Well, speaking of young players and darts and throwing, tomorrow on the podcast, we're going to reflect on the preseason action from tonight. We get CJ Stroud against the Patriots. Minnesota and Seattle. Yes. We're talking preseason football here on tomorrow's podcast.
Looking forward to it. Come on back. See us tomorrow. I'm Kyle Krabs. He's Joe Marino. We are Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hope to see you all again tomorrow.